From Harvard Eye Associates, we want to welcome Dr. John Hovhannissian back to our program as usual. Thanks
Hello,
for joining
Michael.
us.
How are you?
Our monthly visit talking about eyeballs, and we're going to talk about sun damage and the eye and how to treat it, for maybe some prevention stuff. So, what are the most common things in terms of eye damage from the sun that we get? I mean, we know we're not supposed to stare at the sun, so is it not using sunglasses? What are the lists here?
Well, we are in the wonderful sun-drenched Southern California, and when there aren't fires, making the skies dark or rainy springtime weather, we get a lot of sun here. Mm-hmm. And so we see an awful lot of patients who have different types of sun damage. Mm-hmm. And really, when you think about it, the eye is a particularly vulnerable target for sun damage because light rays pass right into the very back of the eye. Unlike getting past the skin, they don't affect too many other parts of the body, right?
Right.
But the eye, which is an incredibly delicate neurologic tissue, it receives UV light directly from the sun, and so we see a whole variety of different diseases from the back of the eye, where macular degeneration we know has some relationship to sun damage, to more the middle of the eye, where cataract or clouding of the lens of the eye is related to UV exposure throughout our lives. Of course, a lot of other things influence both of those conditions.
Right.
And then in the front of the eye, we have some conditions that are affected directly by sun, where damage caused by UV to the structures on the surface of the eye cause problems that are, in many cases, quite unsightly as well as functionally problematic for the eye.
Okay. Now, when I was a kid, I was told, don't sit too close to the television, you're going to hurt your eyes. So, but we are such screen-savvy people these days, and we're on our screens a lot. Is there damage that can come from that? I know that some people put a blue filter on your glasses and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so screens generally don't put out, especially modern screens, don't put out a lot of harmful light. The greater danger, especially for kids who are sitting very close to screens, is driving nearsightedness, driving the progression of nearsightedness in their eyes, myopia, and that is a real problem. We think that is partially driven by proximity to screens that we all spend too much time on. That's why on your iPhone you can set those settings that tell you, hey, you're holding it too close to your face.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a setting.
Yep, and it drives my 15-year-old crazy that I have that turned on, because all the time he's like, Dad, I can't, I have to back it out way out here. He wants to scroll his feed up close. So screens are not as big a problem really as environmental sunlight, and so really the first thing that we should do prevention-wise is wear some sunglasses. And it also helps tremendously to wear a hat that has a brim on it. That cuts down about 60% on the UV light that we're exposed to, believe it or not. So that plus some UV 400 sunglasses really is most of the protection that you need. Okay.
When do you start seeing that in people? What are the ages you start saying, hey, there's some sun damage here, and where you can start telling people, we need to prevent?
Well, we see teenagers here, especially the surfers and others.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's not unusual to see some of the conditions that affect the surface of the eye. Because especially those who are on the water, getting the salt water and sand and other irritants in their eyes, combined with the UV light. And remember, when you're on the water, you're getting it from both directions. You're getting it directly from the sun, and you're getting it bouncing off the surface. And polarized lenses cut down on a little bit of the reflected. They don't really protect your eyes anywhere beyond that. So they cut down on some of the excess light. But even if they're polarized, they're generally 100% UV filtered anyway. So the polarization really mainly helps you to see better if you want to see through the water, see where the fish are, see where the reef is. They're nice for a functional purpose, but they don't protect any more than non-polarized glasses.
All right, we got some close-up pictures of eyeballs, which is always fun.
Great stuff.
Let's take a look at this first one here. And you're going to have to say this one for me.
I love this word, pterygium. Where else do you get a silent P in the English name? So pterodactyl, right?
That's why you went to med school, so you could say words like this.
So I could say words like pterygium. We could give this a name instead of an eye booger.
God, this looks like an invasion of kind of the white part of the eye into the pupil area?
Yeah, into the cornea. So on the front of the eye, there's a dome-shaped clear structure like a watch crystal that's called the cornea. And next to it, the white of the eye is covered with a paper-thin mucous membrane layer called conjunctiva. In this disease, conjunctiva becomes aggressive and thickened, and fibrotic, scar-like tissue forms, and it advances on the surface of the eye, on the cornea, to protect it, I say in air quotes, because UV damage is happening to the eye, and it's sort of a protective mechanism. Of course, it's problematic because the pterygium itself can block vision. It certainly distorts the shape of the eye, affecting vision. And if it's unsightly, it gets red like this and is uncomfortable, and so it's a problem that we want to avoid if we can.
Is it pretty rare, or are you seeing it more and more?
Rare. Not rare around here. If you meet 100 surfers, about 85 of them are going to have this on their eyes.
Really?
In a smaller or larger group. Yeah, lifelong surfers have pterygiums. It is really common.
When we see this start, is there a prevention? Is it something that's going to just keep growing?
They don't always continue to grow when they start, but pterygium are common, and they're irritating even when they are small. And so we don't always recommend surgery for this. We don't always jump to that level. If it's mild, a case like this, we probably would, because this is far enough onto the eye, it's affecting vision. This is probably quite uncomfortable for the patient. And really, eye drops can help a little. Lubricant drops are good for comforting the eye, but they don't solve the problem. They don't address the underlying cause.
In an extreme case, there is surgery. I mean, because it's affecting the sight too much.
Yeah, very effective surgery. In fact, we do it all the time because it is so common around here. I personally do a couple hundred of these a year.
Oh, wow.
My colleagues similarly do a lot of pterygium surgery, and that's just because, like I said, there's demand. And it used to be, there's a lot of myths about surgery for pterygium. It used to be that they would come back half the time, and that the surgery was painful. And we hear patients all the time who come in with a fairly advanced pterygium, and they say, gosh, I was told by my doctor, and I trusted my doctor, that if I do surgery, it's going to hurt a lot, and it's going to come right back. Neither of those is true. With modern techniques for this, only about 2% of patients report anything more than very mild discomfort. For most people, it's just a little scratchiness for about a day. And 95% of the time, actually higher than that, they don't come back. So our success rate in terms of recurrence is in the high 90s%. So they don't need to come back, and it's not a problem you have to have. But you don't want to wait till it gets to this stage.
Right, that seems extreme.
Right, when you have a advanced growth like this, it's going to leave behind some scar tissue that we can't completely remove. And so we prefer to get to it a little bit earlier than this.
And when you see that start to begin at a regular eye exam, and you talk to somebody there's prevention that can maybe like slow things down. And
that's right. We typically encourage patients to to monitor themselves, to monitor whatever is causing it to be red and irritable, and of course to wear UV protection. And ultimately, if it grows or becomes threatening to vision, or significantly irritating, or just very unsightly, we often consider surgery.
Okay, we got one more close-up of an eyeball. I'm not going to roll the dice on this one either. I'm going to let you see this
on
one.
The name pingueculum. So this is a mild-ish pingueculum. This is not always a precursor. This is related, though. This is sun damage on the eye. You see, maybe you can make out kind of a yellowish coloring.
Okay, that's what we're looking at.
That yellowish coloring you see is what we call actinic damage. It's just sun UV-related damage to the connective tissues of the eye. Just like we get sun damage in our skin and elsewhere, it happens in the eye. So it's in between the eyelids where we have the most exposure to sun. Pingueculum is often irritating and gets red. It's why our eyes often look a little bit more tired as we get older, why they have a kind of a yellowish hue to them as opposed to looking bright and white like a young kid's eyes do. And these two they're more considered a cosmetic issue than, and there can be surgery done for these. It's actually similar to pterygium surgery, but of course, because it's not threatening vision, surgery for pingueculum is considered by insurance companies to be cosmetic typically. So it's possible, but it's not usually covered by insurance.
And what are some of are there like you said, in some cases, can there be irritation and bothered from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And often people are bothered by the appearance of it. Now, a good first-line treatment for any of these things is to use, as we mentioned, lubricant drops. There's also an eye whitening drop that is on the safer side. In general, eye doctors recommend you avoid the eye whitening drops at the drugstore because they end up causing your eyes to be more red in the long term. One in particular that's probably safer is a product called Lumify. Lumify is a Bausch & Lomb product, and it works differently. It's actually a very well-established glaucoma drug, but in much less concentration, where it whitens the eye. And so, we say once in a while it's perfectly fine to use Lumify. Put it in if you're going to have your picture taken or going on a date or you're, whatever it
big
is.
night.
That's right, big night. And you can use that. But if you're using it every day or multiple times a day, that's probably too much, and you probably ought to see your eye doctor.
There we go. And speaking of seeing your eye doctor, regular checkups, how important is it for people to just make those even if they're not having any issues?
Well, the saddest thing is to see somebody who doesn't have any symptoms of vision problems who is going blind or nearly going blind because they didn't have a regular eye exam for a condition where we would pick up glaucoma or we would pick up other diseases that can take away your sight that are silent, that really don't have symptoms until very late in the disease. So if you're over 40, it's important to have, and I know you're not over 40, Michael.
No, not yet.
When I say you are over 40, if you're over 40, you should have an eye exam probably every year. And there are a lot of great eye doctors who can do that. Certainly Harvard Eye is a great place. We live in a community where there are many fine eye doctors who take good care of their patients.
All right, Dr. John Hovnesian from Harvard Eye Associates. Everything sun damage and everything eyeball, you've got it covered there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great to see you, Michael.
You're watching This Day. We're going to be right back with Sports Corner.